2017, writer Martin Schneider from Philadelphia was left confused when he started getting rude and dismissive responses to his emails. It wasn't until he realized many email exchanges later that due to using a shared inbox, Martin had actually been accidentally signing his emails with his co-worker's name, Nicole. Martin had previously thought that his colleague Nicole had been taking longer with clients due to having a lot less experience than himself. But his perception changed after this incident. He suddenly found the client not to be helpful, and everything Martin asked for was questioned. Funnily enough, after informing the rude client of his mistake, he was surprised that the man suddenly became a lot less hostile. Following the encounter, Martin decided to switch email signatures with Nicole for 2 weeks to see if there was a pattern emerging. Martin said that life quickly became difficult at the small employment firm. He summarized his experience on Twitter, stating that everything that I asked for or suggested was questioned. Clients I could manage in my sleep were now condescending. One even asked if I was single. Conversely, Nicole had, in her own words, the most productive stint of her career when signing off her emails as a man. I personally like this experiment and the attention it gained on social media because it shows in such a simple way how debilitating gender bias is. In this case, it was merely the signature at the end of an email that impacted how the content of a message is evaluated. If it's signed by a man, we trust the competent advice being given. If it's signed by a woman, we question if what is being said is actually true, wasting both time and resources. Why do we react so differently? Well, one reason for our double standards is the often unconscious ideas and beliefs that we hold with regards to a specific gender. But what exactly is gender? Much of what causes us to view someone as male or female isn't about their sex at all, but their gender. The way in which they present themselves through their behavior, clothing, a haircut, or even the way in which they speak. And for a long time, it was assumed that the gender was divided into two distinct categories, masculine and feminine, which relates to two fixed categories for biological sex, male and female. However, people whose gender identity didn't match the sex they were assigned at birth have existed throughout history and across many cultures. Today, they are referred to as transgender or trans. Those whose sex and gender identities do match are called cisgender. So, we need to think of gender as a spectrum rather than two fixed categories. Unfortunately, very little research considers this. Most of the literature that aims to tackle gender bias in the workplace relies on this traditional binary of women and men. Take, for instance, the well-known Harvard Implicit Association test. The IAT was developed by social psychologists to measure the automatic preferences we have, but are not quite aware of. The Gender Career IAT in particular was developed to test how strongly participants associate the word men with career and the word women with family. The Institute now has considerable data, and it shows that about 75% of male responders display the automatic gender stereotype of male equals work and female equals family. More so, and a bit surprising, 80% of women show the same automatic stereotyping. This is interesting for two reasons. Firstly, it shows that even though we consciously may no longer subscribe to such stereotypes, on an unconscious habitual level, we still display preferences. And secondly, it shows that all genders, not just men, fall into the gender bias trap. And this is an important observation, as it shows gender bias has something to do with the environment which surrounds us. Gender bias is nothing natural or innate, but it develops over the course of one's lifetime through observations and exposure to messages. These messages can be direct. For instance, when someone tells us that boys just don't cry. Or they can be indirect, such as stereotypes we pick up through watching TV, reading bedtime stories, or by the way people interact with us. Interaction is an important aspect in this process. American neuroscientist Lisa Elliott has shown that people unconsciously treat babies differently depending on their sex. In experiments, girls were seen as more social than boys, even when in fact baby boys were just dressed up as girls. Despite their brains being very similar at birth, Elliott argues learning in play steers girls and boys into gendered roles. So our gender bias grows as we get older. Because gender bias, just like any other bias, has the tendency to be self-reinforcing, in that we find the evidence that we really want to see, every new experience or observation we make, we interpret in such a way that it fits to our existing worldview. But the good news is that our automatic gender associations do not control us. The researchers of the Harvard IAT, for instance, point out that strong belief in gender equality can override our automatic reactions. When we recognize our own automatic gender associations, we can overcome them.